Well, welcome to our travel to Cuba information time. And there's actually 4 of us on this call that belong to the Solidarity Committee on the Americas, and it's a part of Women Against Military Madness. We're happy to share the information we have.
Somebody else just came in too.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
We're just starting. So we're pleased to be able to share information and hopefully answer questions about traveling to well, for the 3 of us who are doing this, one of our favorite countries to visit. As we introduce ourselves.
I think it's Joe's too, so.
Yes, I didn't want to speak for you, Joe.
4. Yeah.
Six of us last February. So Carla's on the call, Marcy's on the call, Joe's on the call, and me. We're all from the Solidarity Committee on the Americas. We all went to Cuba in February together. So it was more than half of our group that went. So I thought maybe we could introduce, Carla, Marcy, and I could introduce ourselves and maybe briefly say why we travel to Cuba or what we learn or what we bring back. And so I'm Jairus Heckler, and I've been.
Jairus, why don't we have people who are guests introduce themselves first?
Good idea. Sorry.
Just say who you are and why you decided to be on this. So,
does anybody want to go first?
I'm Tom Bausch, and I was thinking seriously of going on a trip this fall.
All right.
great.
And where are you, Tom?
Pardon me?
Where are you located?
In Falcon Heights.
Oh,
Minnesota.
oh, okay.
And Tom's with Veterans for Peace as well, right? You always show up at the mansion protest against the pipeline with your veterans.
Oh, okay.
Like, so.
Does anyone want to go next?
Well, this is Jan. I can introduce myself. My name's Jan Wan. I live in Mason City, Iowa. I've attended various activities for Cuba over the years, but I've never been there. And I saw there was something coming up, the possibility of going in November, and I thought I could do that. Thought I'd see what I could, if I can.
All right. Does anyone else want to introduce themselves?
So my name is Carol Walker. I'm on the phone, so you can't see me, but I've never been to Cuba either, and it's something I've thought about for years, and I know lots of you who have gone to Cuba, so it's always kind of on the back burner, thinking someday. So anyway, I want to hear more about your experience.
All right. And William, do you want to share anything?
You're on mute. It's not.
Well, if you decide you want to say anything, go just chime in. I'm Jairus Heckler, and I've been to Cuba 4 times since 2007. And I originally went because I went with Pastors for Peace, and one of the leaders had said that during the Katrina disaster or following it, Cuba had offered to send about 1,400 doctors on a brigade to help, and President Bush was in the White House then, and he declined the offer. And I just really couldn't understand why a country would decline that kind of support, especially when we were failing in a lot of ways. What I love about Cuba is its welcoming people. They're always happy to see people from the United States. Well, most of the people that I've ever met. Their culture is a lot less hectic than ours, not as busy, not as tied to the internet. And I appreciate that there isn't the kind of police brutality and murders and school shootings, because basically there's none of that. And I really don't understand why our country continues to persecute them when they send medical brigades around the world. And I don't understand it. So that's why I work to help Cuba. So Marcy or Carla, do you want to say something about yourselves?
You want to go, Carla?
Yeah, I have to unmute. So I'm Carla, really. I've been with our fairly new SCOTA committee for a couple of years since we started it. We're a women-led organization, subcommittee of WHAM, Women Against Military Madness. Before that, I worked very closely with the Cuba committee for a number of years, the Minnesota Cuba committee. And I've actually been to Cuba 7 times now, counting the last February trip. And why I go, it's really kind of simple. You get to see that society can be organized in a different way from how it is here. And while they've not achieved perfection by far, it still has such a different feeling. And visibly you go there, you don't see billboards for poisonous things or poisonous billboards. You know, there's a lot of stuff promoting the revolution around, and you know, people are open and want to talk to you about, you know, your country and why we still have a blockade. I just thought of, before I started this, there's an interesting thing to read about how to go to Cuba with an open mind and to kind of get a handle on how nuanced the reality of it is. I'm going to post it in the chat. It's how to visit. It's an article from Monthly Review in 2010, actually, by Richard, what's the father of Ricardo Morales, who we know as the
Artist.
yeah. So it was his father, actually. So how to visit a socialist country.
I think it's Richard Levins.
Yeah, I think that's right. And he's now deceased, I believe. But yeah, it just really, you know, it's short, a good read, and it just sort of gives you an idea of what you're looking for when you're going to Cuba and how you should process what comes, you know, what comes into your head and you see. And so yeah, that's why I returned to Cuba. Gives you kind of a restart on your hopes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
So I'm next, but I wanted to, we have a new member, Melanie Schaefer. Hi, Melanie. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I didn't see that.
You're on mute, so if you.
Hi. Sorry, I just stopped at Cub to use the ATM. So I am listening and I'm here. Hello. I'm Melanie.
Okay. We're just interested why you chose to join this.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
Perfect. Yeah, so I actually had a professor at the U a couple of years ago, Professor Nimps, and I took his,
Yeah.
Are you familiar with him?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I assume you all know him. So yeah, I took his Cuba class about the revolution. Hold on 1 second, I can't multitask. But yeah, anyway, so I love learning about Cuba and about the revolution and all the events that transpired. And found it very interesting that, like a lot of other topics in the United States, we're given a completely different view of what actually happened. So yeah, I would love to visit Cuba someday. I'm not sure if this year is the year, but I'm very interested in like the process because I'm like really confused on that. So I was hoping to like learn some more today.
Mhm.
Great.
Okay, so there's like three of us who are kind of facilitating this, but there's actually a fourth person, just to let you know, Melanie, who the four of us went on a trip. Oh, you're reading We Are Cuba. Went on a trip this past February to Cuba, very similar trip to what we're thinking about doing in November. So my name's Marcy. I've been a kind of Cuba solidarity activist for, I think, about 1 million years. I don't know how long it is, but I actually first went to Cuba in 1979. And it was the 1 year where travel to Cuba was totally legal. Carter was the president and he opened it up, and then something I can't even remember what happened afterwards, why he shut it down. So it was a really different experience to going that time because we didn't have to be so careful about all the paperwork and everything about going there. But it was a very different experience then because the Soviet Union was around and they provided a lot of subsidy to Cuba, and Cuba was much more affluent than it is now because of that support. But I was struck then, and I'm still struck now at the last trip about what both Juris and Carla talked about, which is the feeling that you get when you're in Cuba, that it's a different way of living, that people are, I think one of the things I've always been struck with is how well educated everybody is, no matter what their job is, that everybody has had a excellent education, and they know a lot. They know a lot about the world. They know a lot about the United States. When you talk to them, they'll know a lot about the United States. They know just so much. And it is, to me, I am always so struck with, it's so wonderful to be around people who are so well educated and who really want to learn and know about a lot of things. So it's just a really, Cubans are fun. They're a really fun people, and they have a good time, and they like to dance, and they like music, but it's also just their whole way of dealing with the world that's quite different than here. And it has to do with the fact that how they grew. You know, most of the people who are there in Cuba now grew up since the revolution, and it's how they grew up, what they experienced, what they were told about themselves. They're told that they're important, that that people are more important than, some corporate person who has a lot of money. So that in itself is just a wonderful experience. So I'm done.
Well, thank you, Marcy and Carla. Joe, do you want to say anything, even though you're not one of the facilitators?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Well, why don't I think just say a couple of words about why you've gone to Cuba several times.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, you've gone on so many different kinds of trips. So, not just educational trips, but anyway. But
Yeah, there's solidarity brigades where people do things like voluntary labor.
Mm-hmm.
Venceremos Brigade does that, and there's the Mayday Brigade, which is a very inexpensive way to go to Cuba, and they go first week in May. those trips are subsidized by the Cuban government. You're staying in an international camp where the conditions are pretty Spartan. So you got to be, if that's a trip that is best for young people more than those of us that are not young. And I would just recommend for people first time going to Cuba to you'll get more out of it, I think, if you read up some. Carla mentioned Professor Levin's article, and I'll mention a book recently by Scottish professor Helen Yaffe called "We Are Cuba."
Jan said that she was reading it now.
Okay, yes, that's an excellent book, and that was written just a couple of years ago. So it's very up to date and very excellent source. So when you get to Cuba, if you're wanting to go to Cuba to learn about it, not just to take a vacation for a couple of weeks or something, I highly recommend stuff like that.
All right, well, thank you, Joe. So travel to Cuba is unique, and it's more unique than going to other countries. So before we continue, what questions do any of you have about traveling to Cuba? That way we can be sure to try and answer them. So you could either put them in the chat, or if you just want to go ahead and speak up, that's fine. So any questions that are like you're really wondering about?
Or also maybe you could say if you've had a chance to go to the website and look at how you register and how you reserve a spot. It can get a little confusing at times. So if you've looked at that and been a little stymied, we can probably talk you through it, because we were there a few months ago.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any questions about or wanting more information right now that we can start with, or otherwise we'll just start talking.
Well,
Yeah.
since you brought it up, this is Jan again. Who are we registering with?
Oh, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
It's Proximity Cuba is the name of the organization. It's based in Cuba, and it was started partly by members of Code Pink a few years back. You know, Code Pink, the women's
Yep.
section. So they organized our trip in February and have been organizing trips for a number of years. So we really like the way they did it. So that's who it is. And the website is proximitycuba.com. And you can jump into an explanation of who they are and what the trip's going to be like. It's got a lot of detail and the potential itinerary is laid out there. So you can see what you think of that. Have any other requests or questions?
So relating to what Carla just said, it's really important if you want to go on an organized trip to Cuba, that you go with, that there's a group in the United States that's kind of part of the trip, and then there's a kind of travel group in Cuba that kind of makes all the arrangements. So Proximity Cuba is doing all the rearrangements for us, finding all the people who will speak, or who will, the places that will go. And then then in the United States, the Solidarity Committee on the Americas and WHAM is sort of the sponsor in the United States, plus Code Pink. Code Pink is kind of being a co-host with us on the trip. So, but really the main work of kind of organizing the trip is done by Proximity Cuba, and then Solidarity Committee make some suggestions about what we think should be included.
And could I just add that as far as all of this is done under the unwelcome umbrella of strange US requirements.
Oh, yeah.
So there are 12 categories in which you are allowed to travel to Cuba. I mean, it's just totally bogus and meaningless, but yet there it is. You cannot be a tourist, although when you get your visa from Cuba, they call it a tourist card, but you just have to live with that contradiction, as you will with others that are required by the US government. We are traveling under a support for the Cuban people license, which, like the other licenses or most of the other licenses, is not, it's not on a piece of paper. It's a virtual license. So you are licensed if you comply with the requirements, which are very vague, but Proximity Cuba, like other tour organizers, do their best to comply with these requirements. You got to spend a certain amount of time supporting the Cuban people, which we do by, I don't know, I guess, meeting with them and learning from them and passing on important information about the US. I don't know. Again, it's so vague, but fortunately nobody has gotten into trouble with the government for years on, well, I don't want to say nobody, there may be one or two people, but it's a completely legal trip if anybody's concerned about that, and there will be no problems with going and coming back. You will be legal. Sometimes they give you a bit of a hassle when you're returning, but and if you have any rum or cigars, they'll take them away because you can't bring those from Cuba. But you can bring artwork, you can bring books, and when we came back, they were in such a hurry, they didn't even ask us any questions or look at our luggage. So, kind of hit or miss. But I just want to be very clear on how these things are organized. You have to have a representative of the group here in the US. So one of us from SCOTA and Code Pink will be that person. We don't know who that is yet, but and Proximity Cuba knows how to organize legal trips, but also very useful ones from our point of view.
Okay, so aren't we going on a people-to-people exchange? Or
No,
is it
that's just
support?
Biden just authorized that, but it's easier, according to those who know, to go
Okay.
under support for the Cuban people. I don't think they've fully fleshed out how you're going to go under the people-to-people
Okay,
individual license at this point.
okay. I couldn't remember that part. Well,
One of the reasons that Jairus brought up people to people is when we used to go, it was on a people to people license. The licenses keep changing all the time, depending on who is president and who's running the Department of Treasury. And so that's the name they just started up again. So it really doesn't matter.
And
It's
just
just
remember, yeah, I was going to say that US citizens go back and forth to Cuba all the time. That is the relatives of Cubans, and they go under the same license requirements that we do. So they're pretty used to having people go to Cuba, even though we may not see many people from Minnesota going. There's lots of people from Florida going, and other states.
okay, so Carla, were you going to talk us through the website a little bit, or the online registration? You're muted too.
Sorry, get into 2 minutes. But yeah, let's take a look at the website. I'll share the screen on this, and
one of the things that's different, and we don't know how it will exactly go in November, but we'll know by the time people go, is the airlines used to provide a visa, and it looks like some of the airplane, you would just do the visa on the airline. Or it would be part of your when you bought your ticket, it would be part of that. So we had to do something different in February, but part of that was because it had been closed for a while and airlines weren't going in there. We also had to have quite a bit of COVID restrictions, but who knows what's going to happen with that. But that's something that would be laid out pretty clearly for you too, as so you won't have to worry about that until it gets closer to the trip. And that's something that Proximity Cuba is very good at communicating to anybody coming about what exactly you have to do to get into the country, because they were closed down for quite a while. Okay, so go ahead with the.
Okay, well, here's the website. It's proximitycuba.com, and it this thing about it, headlines people to people, we're not doing that, so that's not, doesn't apply to our trip. We're the support for the Cuban people. But, and here's our trip. They named it Cuba at a Crossroads. We're not quite sure why, but that's what crossroads are referring to, but that's not particularly important. We're going on a solidarity trip. So they have some information about, if you've never traveled to Cuba, and it's $1,900 plus airfare and a few other exceptions. So there's that. Then wait for more information. We can go here. This just basically repeats, or it does repeat what was on the first page. And it lays out the tentative itinerary. You get, you can now get flights or direct, I don't know if they're direct flights with one stop where you don't have to get off the airplane. That's a lot easier than when we did it. There's actually some flights, I don't remember which one, where you go early in the morning and you actually get there that same day, which is, a lot better than having to sleep on a plane or rent a hotel in another city, which is in the transfer city. So that's a little easier. So you can, if you're thinking, if you're going to go, you should maybe start looking at airfares. Most of the travel, what do they call them, accumulators or something, where like Expedia, or there's one called Sky. Do you remember what the name of that was? Skyscanner.com.
Oh,
has pretty good
Sky
information.
Scanner, yeah.
But they don't all list Cuban flights yet, so not all the airlines, but there are quite a few. So anyway, you get picked up at the airport. They were waiting for us there. It's about an hour's drive from Havana, I would say, wouldn't you? So you get a nice view of the countryside on your way there, and then we get there in time for dinner. And we didn't do this. This was one of the things we suggested for this trip, is to have a meal at a Paladar, which is the privately owned restaurants that operate out of people's houses. They started a few years ago. So you can get an idea of it's a family living in this house. So how that works is kind of interesting. Some of this is reiterated in the videos we posted on the WHAM YouTube page. We did a lot of videos of the various events. So for instance, the city tour, you see a lot of old Havana, and it's just, the old colonial buildings are just remarkable and beautiful. A lot of them have been restored, partly with the help of one of the UN international organizations, historic places. Not sure about the details. And anyway, then you go to this, the first visit is this cultural project, Caillon de Amel, which is just full of unbelievable art and dancing and wonderful lecture or presentation really on the head of it about Cuban religion in Cuba and art. And so that is actually one of our videos. So I really encourage you to tune into that and just listen to what he's got to say. It's so interesting. You know, he talks about Santeria and the other Cuban religions, and it's not Afro-Cuban, it's Cuban religion with African influences. That's how he described it. So I won't go through this whole thing. You can look at it, but that we also have lunch then at a place that's definitely a tourist attraction, La Bodeguita del Medio. That was the hangout of Ernest Hemingway, so it's famous for that, and lots of famous people have signed the walls, and it's, you know, it's interesting. So then we just go on. There's a mixture of meeting with people from non-governmental organizations, which are different from ours. They're sort of quasi-governmental, like the Cuban Institute for Friendship with the People. And then art and history, the Museum of the Revolution, where you get to see the grandma in real life, which is, you know, the ship that they first landed in when Fidel and his group went from Mexico to Cuba to start the revolution. So there's we went to one agricultural cooperative, I'll just mention, and they've now added an organic farm, which is just right outside of Havana. And I think some of us have been to that before, but that's really interesting as well. And we're going to meet with our Minnesota connection, a filmmaker, Gloria Rolando. We've worked with her a lot in the past to help her with, she writes about the African people, African descents in Cuba, basically. She makes films about it. So she's now working on one involving nuns in Baltimore, who went to Cuba to provide education for young Afro-Cubans. This was before the revolution. Anyway, she's a wonderful person to talk to, so it's a good opportunity. So yeah, I skipped over some of this, but any questions? And more will be added to this as we go forward. Any comments? Anything I said?
One thing is we would go to the Fidel Center, which just opened up a few months ago. We were one of the first groups to go, and it's I don't know what that's one of the things that was, to me, I was just thinking of a couple really impressive things, was that, which really goes through the whole Fidel's whole life and what he did. And then the other one that I thought was really impressive was the Museo de la Denancia. And it's about how the US has attacked Cuba over and over and over, and all the terrible things that we've done to Cuba. And it's really important to go to really understand the difficulties the Cubans have had because of the US, the terrible US ways of relating to Cuba and wanting to really destroy it. What a way to end what I'm talking about, but there's a lot of other great places that we're going to go to soon. So
Right.
Positive places. Yeah.
Carla, were you gonna mention anything? One form that we fill out on the airplane is a declaration for Cuba form. It's in Spanish, but right, we filled it out on the plane, or was that ahead of time?
Yeah, I think we had to submit it in Miami, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let me, pull that up and people can take a look at it. It's pretty confusing, but I don't think anybody really looks at it that much. So,
Well, the other thing is if we printed it out for people, we could show them like the answers to put in, because some of the translation of words was
yeah, so we can.
not, I had a Spanish speaker help me.
That doesn't actually come up till after
Oh,
you
okay.
registered in your, I'll pull it up and you can just take a look. Let's see, where did I have it here?
The main thing with all these forms and all this stuff, that it basically the US requires, it's not us. It's not Cuba, but it is proximity Cuba will walk you through all this. So you don't need to worry about it. People worry about, oh, do I need to do something special about my passport or anything like that? The
Yeah,
only thing is you should, if you don't have a passport or a current passport, you should be working on getting your passport, either getting it updated, because it takes a long time now.
Yeah, it does.
um,
So the
I found.
website is actually live now, right? People can do their save.
Oh,
the
yeah.
spot.
And you can just go in and reserve a space without paying
Yeah.
any money. So, and then the registration, all right, let me just pull this up. It's the sanitary declaration. So this is basically about COVID. So,
Oh, that's right.
and we didn't have it ahead of time. So there we were, those of us who didn't speak Spanish or not very well, with our phones trying to enter the information on this at the airport. So that was awkward. But it has translations in here. Some of them are clumsy. Motive for the trip, actually, you probably will be checking tourism, because for purposes of Cuba, you're a tourist, but you know, we're not tourists via the US.
Yeah, the
so,
United States doesn't see this.
yeah.
form.
Although I guess probably you could check visit too. Maybe that would be more neutral. I don't know. And then the street, often they have between this street and that street. So you'll have that information, same hotel we stayed in, and you just have to put the address there. And let's see. Okay. This is a kind of interesting because they have some bad translations here. So have you ever had, well, eruption is a rash, okay, conjunctivitis, loss of smell, I guess that's relating to, and then rhinitis, which nobody quite knows what that is. Asthenia, that's some weird thing that involving breathing or something if you Google it, but yeah, you probably don't have that, or these other ones. I don't think we've figured out what this is. Coryza. Does anybody know what that actually is? Shortness of breath, loss of taste,
No,
decay. Do you have any decay? I've definitely got decay because I'm getting old, but I think they probably mean tooth decay there. I don't know. So, you know,
Well,
they
and we
don't
could,
scrutinize these in any case, so.
we could also ask Rodrigo with Proximity Cuba to tell us what those things mean, right?
Yeah, we could, but we just, you know, we filled them out on the fly, and you know, I think
Yeah.
really,
And they
they
were
can-
just fine.
yeah.
They
so
can
nobody
lead us
asked
through all
questions.
that. You know, I think it would be good to talk less about the forms and maybe more about kind of why you should go to Cuba. I think, you know,
Okay.
I mean, I think we're talking too much about the bureaucracy of it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
you know, the thing for me is, and I think Carla talked about, it's just refreshing for me to go, because I get very depressed here in the United States. And so it's a way to see a different way of living. And then also, I think there's a lot of history in Cuba that you learn about when you go on a trip.
Mhm.
And I think that's really fascinating. And it's also fascinating to interact with Cubans. I mean, because they're so interested in us, and they're so happy to see people from the United States coming and supporting them. One thing I just want to say is, one of the things people are saying right now is the best thing if you want to support Cuba right now is to travel there. That people, they really need the tourism to help them economically, and they also need people coming to understand what's going on in Cuba, for people to, so people understand the blockade or embargo and its impact on people's lives, and also to just understand life in Cuba and to be able to bring good information back to your friends and neighbors and tell them about, because so many people have so many misconceptions about Cuba. And so it's a really, you end up being sort of a, I don't know what the word is, but you know, like a, just being able to,
Conduit.
a conduit, or a, you know, like a being, you know, being an expert on Cuba because you've been there. And when you hear kind of weird things that people say about Cuba, you can say back to them, no, it's not really like that. I remember I used to have a neighbor when I was going to several of my trips, and every time I went, he said, but it's a communist country. And I said, what does that mean to you? I mean, I said, it's a country where there's a lot of equality and there's a lot of support for people, so to meet their everyday needs. And I said, even if you like or don't like the Communist Party, it's hard not to like how much support there is for the people there. You know, they get their food taken care of, they get help with housing, they get help with, you know, their education is totally paid for, their health care is totally paid for. So you can be like a spokesperson for Cuba when you come back, and you will learn so much.
But just going back to the article about from Richard Morales,
Yeah.
it's, you know, you get to understand its nuanced reality.
Yes,
It's
right.
very hard in Cuba for individuals mainly because of the blockade, undoubtedly because of mistakes the Cubans have made as well. But the blockade makes a difference, or as the US calls it, the embargo. It makes such a difference to people's lives. They can't get drugs of some kinds. They couldn't get what they needed for COVID, the respirators, because, you know, the US didn't allow them to buy them. So that's another thing to bring back when they say, oh, you were just brainwashed. Well, you'll be able to say, yeah, no, but, you know, this is also the reality of what's going on.
Well,
Right
and
now, they're trying to buy anesthesia machines. And do you want to just say about the hospital and how many operating rooms they have, Jairus, and how many anesthesia machines they have?
right now there's a campaign going on for saving lives, and they started up in 2021. They sent 6 million syringes to Cuba, and now the campaign is to buy 3 anesthesia machines. There are 23 operating rooms at Calixto Garcia Hospital, which is a major hospital for I can't think of the word for it, but it's not like a heart hospital and those kinds of things. It's for like if you need limbs repaired and things like that. And they have 2 anesthesia machines. And so they've identified through contact with doctors at the hospital, US people on Saving Lives have identified 3 machine, a specific type of machine that the Cubans could then repair and also get parts for, because that's a huge issue because of the blockade, is they can't get parts for things. And they're very resourceful. They repair things. They don't throw them away or junk them, or, you know, so it's kind of an exciting project. Does anybody have any questions about what we're talking about, or specific things you want to know?
Awesome.
Unfortunately, he died 8 months ago.
Uh-oh,
No,
we hear someone,
with COVID.
we hear someone.
And anyway,
There.
it's a pleasure to have you, to have you here again in Cuba, people from the US. And I'll try to give you an overview about this place, about the African heritage. What is this place? Cairo de Hamel is the first cultural center of murals and permanent installations inspired by the
Oh, I'm
African
sorry. I just, it
It's our video.
was me. I put the link in the chat to the YouTube videos, and I inadvertently started the video where.
Oh, Carla, that's
Yeah,
funny.
okay, my fault. I'm sorry.
Can you speak to the need of insurance or not?
Yeah.
Oh, travel insurance?
Yeah. You should have proof of your insurance. If not, I'm not quite sure what they do. They don't turn you away if you don't have, but you may have to buy some insurance in Cuba.
Oh, no, I don't think you remember. Okay, when you go on the plane, part of your airfare, a certain amount of money buys you health insurance while you're in Cuba. And so you don't need to worry about having insurance. That will also be taken care of. Proximity to Cuba will explain it to you, but
Yeah.
you will have health insurance, and it's done through the airplane that you're on,
The airline.
airline, and somehow they must work
Here.
with Cuba.
Health,
So I'm
health
sorry,
insurance now is,
travel insurance or health insurance?
if you
Oh,
look,
health insurance.
yeah, if you look at the page here, program cost does not include health insurance. Now it is included in the airfare. So yeah, I guess that answers the question.
But the question is about travel insurance.
Oh,
and
No, my
that
question was
you
about
can-
any insurance. I don't have any.
And what kind of insurance you want to know about?
Well, just any requirement for insurance or,
The health insurance will be part of your airfare, but
oh,
because you don't have to have your own health insurance to go there.
Right.
The airfare, they pay money to Cuba, and then all of your healthcare needs are taken care of in Cuba if you get sick or you have an accident. As far as travel insurance, that's really up to you, if you feel like you need to have it. Usually travel insurance is if the trip is canceled.
right.
And so I don't know that that's a really big issue unless, it's like 2 days before and you've paid towards your thing. You can get travel insurance for Cuba if you want. And I think you would go to there's one big travel insurance company that does international travel insurance in the Western Hemisphere. And I mean, we can help you find that if you decide you want to get
I
that.
don't think I know anybody who's gotten travel insurance per se, though.
I can remember one time
Okay,
people got it. So, and I can help you figure out. If you want to do that, the company that you need to approach for that.
why don't we put our email addresses in the chat so you can, with questions like this, contact one of us directly. Is that okay with you guys?
Mhm.
I don't, yeah. we already have the addresses of the people who registered, so that's not, but just put mine.
Do we have any other questions about the things that we've talked about or not covered?
Well, I missed some of it because I had to take a work call, but I have two questions that I've been kind of thinking about. Hold on one second.
Come on, Mama.
You have a cheerleader. Oh, hi.
That's Willow. But yeah, so I have a family, obviously. So we don't go anywhere without each other. So if we were to take a trip, you know, could it be a family trip?
I think so.
You mean with your
Carla's
child?
brought her son to Cuba,
Yeah.
and Jairus has brought her daughter to Cuba when they were
When-
younger.
How old
Okay.
is
He's
Oh,
four.
So, well, I think that's just something to talk, the email for Rodrigo at Proximity Cuba is on the website. You should just contact him directly and ask about how that would work. I'm pretty sure they could arrange it and you wouldn't probably have to pay
Yeah,
the full amount. So
Right.
you're talking just the two of you, right?
So us two and my husband.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, I think they give you a break on your child, but I think you probably both have to you know, they don't have a but it's worth asking, yeah.
Okay, cool.
and
And then
Rodrigo, who is
the
from,
website. Hold on, baby. Yes, sure, I will. Just hold on one second, please. Can I put this down so I can help you? Great, thank you. I'm sorry. When you said the
Rodrigo,
website, do you mean the Proximity Cuba website?
yeah. But
Okay, cool.
write to Rodrigo, who is the head of Proximity Cuba. He has a child who's probably about the same age, and he might have some ideas about what your child could do. So, you know, when you go off on the different things that, you know,
Yeah, he might be able to arrange some childcare, so I just put,
or visiting with other little kids, you know.
yeah,
So,
so I
Okay.
put his email in the
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay, and I have one more question. So is the cost, does that include meals or just some meals? Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
most meals.
Most meals? Okay, and then we are vegan, so would that be an accommodation that would be able to be made, or how would that work?
There were a couple people in our group were vegans, and they seemed to be able to, you know, they just ordered food that was, you know, most of the things you order food or they have 4 choices or something,
Yeah,
and you'd be able to just say, you know,
but maybe if they knew ahead of time, I'm trying to remember from the registration forms that if it asks if you know, are vegan or vegetarian, I don't remember for sure, it might, but otherwise that would be another thing to just direct to Rodrigo, I think.
Right.
Cool.
I think, I'm not sure, we often eat, almost every day we ate breakfast at the hotel, and I don't know if, it was a very simple breakfast. They didn't have a very big menu, so I
Yeah.
don't.
That would be a problem, because I'm sort of a vegetarian. And there was a little more meat than I would want. There was, you know, ham, and that was a fairly large, but if you're vegan, you can't eat eggs either, right? So
I think if they'll accommodate you, because I know that there were a couple people in our group who were vegans, so I think they just need to know so that they can take care of you.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys.
You know, the one thing I would say is people are pretty flexible in Cuba, and if they can be, you know, sometimes they can't for different reasons, but they'll be, you know, they'll try to help you out to get what you need.
Yeah, and the restaurants are gonna be hopefully better stocked, for lack of a better word. We had kind of a lot of similar meals because they were just coming, the tourist, industry was just getting started again, so. I think
After the pandemic.
Yeah, there'll be more variety and more options than what we were able to take advantage. I mean, the food was fine, but it was, it was somewhat limited.
I think like David Paul was a vegan, and
Okay,
he seemed to be able to do okay, so.
Yeah.
And what's her name, who does a lot of that? The
Oh,
gardening stuff.
Rachel.
Rachel, I'm pretty sure she is too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I realize it's after 8. Are there any other questions that anyone has? I actually have to go get my granddaughter, so.
Well,
So let me put
Carla and I can stay if people
Yeah.
have more questions.
Okay,
I'm gonna put your email in, Jairus, so just.
I
tell me
did
what-
put it in.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
I put it in the chat.
I don't see it.
Oh, I just did it to Jan. Oh, sorry. How do
Okay,
you get it to everybody?
the arrow key right here, right on next to her name, then it'll show up everyone in the meeting. Find it?
Oh, wait. Why didn't it go to everyone? Oh,
I'll do it. What, Gerald Heckler 55, right?
no, it's just JERR.
RRIS.
No, take the IS out.
JER,
2 R's.
yeah,
And then Heckler
55.
55 at Gmail.
okay. All right,
About that. There you go. Thank you.
okay, Marcy can put hers in. All right. So
All right, well, I really enjoyed talking to everybody. So if you guys don't mind ending it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for considering our trip. I hope you can go.
yeah,
And we'll do this again, so you can, if you think of questions, you can come back and either send us questions, or you can come back if we do another Zoom meeting about it, so.
and if
Yeah.
you get to the registration and start filling out the form, if you need any help with that, as I said, it's kind of confusing,
You
just.
can go, Jairus. You just-
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
can help with that. The other thing we're
Thank you.
doing, we should mention, is if you don't speak Spanish, it's not a problem, but it's nice if you can. And we didn't take advantage of this on our trip because we weren't quite sure how it worked, but you can use, you won't have the internet anywhere you walk in Cuba. If you hook up to it, then you can phone using the internet, or you can text or whatever. But if you want to, translation is what I was talking about. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. The Apple app is for iPhone, and the Google Translate app for Android is available and very useful. And you'll have to be offline. That's, I think, what I was trying to say, because, well, there won't be just internet access wherever you are, but you can use it offline. You have to go to the app, download the dictionary. It gets a little complicated, but I can walk you through it after you've given it a try. There's a page that, go to the Apple support website, just Apple support if you're on an iPhone, and just translate, and it'll get you to the way. But so you can speak into it in English and it will translate in Spanish for the person you're trying to speak to. So that's handy.
Any other questions anybody has, or?
Comments?
Oh, this is really helpful. Thank you.
Good. Well, keep in touch. So we,
Yeah, and you can send us questions anytime, and
yeah,
especially let us know if you're really interested, because we'll, make sure and keep in touch with you about the trip.
Okay. Is there a deadline?
I don't know.
Yeah, August 2nd, but we found with these trips, they keep pushing the deadline back, so
Oh.
not August 2nd, I think, September 2nd.
September
Oh,
2nd.
September,
Yes.
okay.
September 2nd, sorry.
But it, that, you can do register later than that, so.
Uh-huh. Well, all right,
Okay,
thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? All right. Bye.
Well, thanks for everybody and we hope you all can go.
Yeah.